New home sales across America are plummeting, a 24% decline year over year through June. That's the largest decline in new home sales America has seen since 2009-2010 in the midst of the worst housing crash ever. And I think if you're a prospective home buyer, if you're a prospective investor, or maybe someone who's thinking of selling your home and you're trying to time the market right now, looking at new home sale data could be a way to do it, because historically, new home sales are a leading indicator of the housing market. That means that when new home sales spike, like they did last summer, home prices spike 6 to 12 months later. However, historically, when new home sales crash, that means home prices are going to crash just 6 to 12 months later. So the fact that this is a predictive metric means that you need to be paying attention to it. So what I'm going to do for you in this video, guys, is show you what this data set means, show you the big decline in home sales we've seen over the last 12 months, and I'm going to show you how you can track this data set on your own going forward so you can make a better decision as a home buyer, investor, or potentially seller. Let's get into the data, everyone. And so we're going to start by looking at the raw number of new home sales in America in June of each year, going back about 3 decades. And this is data that comes from the US Census Bureau New Home Sales Survey. It's one of the oldest and most respected real estate data sets available, and it tracks the number of newly built homes sold each month. And so that's basically a home that was just built, sold to its first owner. And we can see here that in June 2021, 60,000 homes were sold. Newly built homes were sold in June 2021. That's a dramatic drop off from the roughly 80,000 newly built homes that were sold in June 2020. And if you look historically, guys, you can see that this type of drop off is historically very rare. I mean, it certainly hadn't occurred in the previous decade where we saw mainly increases in new home sales. And we really need to go back to like 08, 09 to see some type of similar type of drop off in new home sales. And if we go back even further into the 90s and 80s, we can see that there was really no other year that had this type of drop off in new home sales. Maybe we came close in 99, 2000, it was around minus 11,000. Interestingly, there was a recession about a year later. And maybe we came close from 89 to 91, where we dropped off by about 11,000. There was also a recession about a year later. But the thing I want you to get from this is that the drop off in home sales we've seen from 2020 to 2021, historically unprecedented. You can particularly see that if we change the view to the percentage change year over year. Instead of looking at the raw number, now we're looking at the percentage change. And you can see that that minus 24% this past June, there's really only been a couple other years in recent history where similar declines have occurred. We're talking 2010, we're talking 2008, we're talking 2007. So what we're really looking at here is that this decline in home sales is a housing crash level decline if we compare it to historical data. And so just wrap your head around that for a second. Minus 24% from June 2020 to June 2021. That is historically unprecedented. That is a massive drop-off. We've only seen that type of drop-off before in the midst of the last housing crash. So that's gotta make you concerned. If you're a potential home buyer right now, you're a potential real estate investor, you're looking at getting into the market now, know that you're getting into the market in a time period where we're seeing a drop-off in demand for new homes. And that drop-off in demand for new homes has been historically predictive of declines in prices going forward. And I think at this point it's interesting to ask, why are new home sales dropping off? Why are we seeing a decline in the demand for new homes? And if you've watched my channel, you might already know the answer, but in case you haven't, I'm going to tell you right now 2 principal reasons. The first is, since home prices have gotten so expensive over the last year, especially relative to wages and income, it simply means that some people are just priced out of the housing market. Like, even if they wanted to buy a home right now, some people can't buy a home. They don't have the money for a down payment. Right? And even if they did have the money for the down payment, we go into reason 2, and that's that banks are super hesitant to lend. This is a topic I talked about last week in one of my videos. Bank lending standards right now are super, super strict. So even if you have a person who might have enough for a down payment, they're now paying a really, really high price for that home, and they're trying to get a loan, and the bank is saying to them, I don't know, your credit score isn't quite good enough, or maybe you had some volatile job history, so we're not going to approve this loan. Now, I've read a bunch of articles on this topic over the last couple of days. I've actually seen a lot of YouTube comments to a post I made on my community board, and I've seen a lot of people actually saying something like this, that it's actually not reflective of a decline in demand, this new home sale decline. They're saying it's more reflective of a decline in supply and inventory. I've seen a lot of people out there arguing that the reason that home sales are declining is that there just simply aren't enough homes on the market for sale. And I think this is a tempting narrative to believe, because if you look around, you see a lot of stuff on, lumber and material shortages, labor shortages, and a lot of people are saying that builders are having a hard time, actually building homes right now. And while I think that's true to an extent, it's not really impacting inventory that much. In fact, inventory has surged across the country over the last couple months, particularly for newly built homes. The amount of newly built homes for sale in America in June 2021 was at its highest level in 13 years. And you can see what I'm talking about on this graph, where we're looking at two lines here. The blue line is the number of homes, newly built homes for sale, and then the yellow line is the number of sales of newly built homes that month. So again, the blue line is the number of newly built homes for sale, the yellow line, the number of them sold. And so you can see here in June, we had that 60,000 sold compared to 358,000 for sale. Wow, 358,000 for sale. And you can see that, in our time period here on the graph, going back to 2010, we've never had this many newly built homes for sale on the market. Guys, if you're enjoying the data in this video and you actually want to see more of these videos going forward, make sure to hit that like button. When you do that, it gets me more exposure on YouTube. And when I get more exposure, that means I can spend more time on creating these videos. I actually just went from doing 2 videos per week to 3 videos per week. Maybe I can get myself up to 4 if I get enough support from you guys. Additionally, make sure to leave a comment. I want to hear about what your experiences are in the housing market. When you guys leave comments about your experiences buying, selling, renting, it makes me more informed and makes these videos better. All right, let's get back to it. Once again, this is data that comes from the US Census Bureau. They've been tracking new homes for sale, new home sales over the last 40 years. This is one of the most well-respected and tenured real estate data sets, and it's saying, no, there's no inventory shortage of new homes. We have more new homes for sale than we ever had, and yet new home sales are declining. Now, if we were to go back, say, to June or July of last year, we can see that actually new homes for sale declined quite a bit. We went from about 328,000 new homes for sale prior to COVID to 283,000 in August. So if you were making an argument back in August that there's an inventory shortage of new homes, I would say that's actually probably maybe a correct argument. There was a big decline in for sale listings. However, that decline in for sale listings is long gone, and we have a record amount of new homes for sale right now. And I suspect that data might be shocking to some of you because it's so counter to what the mainstream narrative about the housing market is saying. If you open up any news article, if you talk to any realtor, if you look at most real estate YouTube channels, they're going to be talking about how there's no homes available, how there's a shortage of newly built homes, how builders can't build. Yet when we look at the census data in the most tenured, well-respected housing data metric tracked by the census, they're saying there's plenty of homes available for sale. So how do we square this difference? And I would say this, guys, you got to understand what the incentives are for contractors, builders, and realtors. Their incentives are to create FOMO about the housing market. And you hear these rumors about like, oh my God, there was like 30 cars outside the contractor's office in the development, and there's this massive waiting list for homes, and like no one can get them. I would say that is happening in some cases, but in most cases, I suspect that that's just fake news spread by realtors and contractors and builders so they can hype people up into buying homes. So for you to make sure you don't fall into the trap of believing these false narratives, you need to look at this data. Because it's ultimately the hard data which is going to guide you in the right direction if you're a prospective home buyer, investor, or seller trying to make the right decision right now in 2021. That can be very difficult because there's so much noise out there. There's so much chatter. And for instance, just today we had a new news release of home prices going up by 16% through May, according to the Case-Shiller Home Index. That's the highest level ever. Right? So we're still seeing crazy data on the housing market coming out. Home prices going up by 16%. So I know a lot of you are saying, like, how do I square this? How do I understand that home prices are going up by 16%, but new home sales are declining, and that's a sign of a housing crash? We got to understand what I talked about in the intro is that new home sales are a leading indicator. They're predictive of what's going to happen in the future in terms of home prices. So we're going to see new home sales continue to decline most likely, and prices continue to go up for several months. That's going to be expected, I would think, looking at the historical data. But really, I think what a lot of you care about, right, is if you're buying right now, you do not want to be buying at the top. You do not want to be buying near the peak, because that's bad news. That means, especially if you're getting a loan, you're going to have negative equity, you're going to lose money. So what I'm going to show you now is the historical relationship between new home sales and home price growth. And so what we're looking at on this graph on these two lines, in blue, we have the year-over-year percentage change in new home sales. And this is a rolling 12-month average now. We're no longer looking at just June. This is a rolling 12-month average, year-over-year percentage change. The yellow line is the year-over-year percentage change in home prices. So we're now studying the relationship between how new home sales change and how home prices change. And the home price data comes from Zillow. We can see that 03-04, we have a big surge in new home sales, all the way up to like a 17% year-over-year increase in 04. And while the acceleration starts going down, we're still in positive territory on growth in new home sales, all the way until April 06. And then after April 06 is when new home sales actually start declining from the previous year. We can see that home prices are lagging this change, right? Home prices actually keep accelerating all the way until late 05. And then they decelerate, but we don't actually see price declines until about July 07. So this gap here, you can see, is about a 12 to 14 month lag between new home sales going into negative territory and then home price growth going to negative territory. We can also see that when the housing market started rebounding in 2012, 2013, crossing into positive territory, it was led by increases in new home sales. So decreases in home sales predicted the housing crash last time, and then increases in home sales predicted the recovery. And it's very important that you guys understand this, right? That new home sales are a leading indicator of the housing market. So when new home sales go down, that doesn't mean that home prices are going down today. That means that home prices are going to potentially go down in the next 12 months or so. And I think that's very important to understand that difference, because I see a lot of people commenting on my videos and they say, Nick, how is it that we're in a housing crash, in the early stages of a housing crash, if I still see prices going up in my area? And that's a very fair question, right? And I think it's all about being forward-looking, right? If I'm buying a house or if I'm buying an investment property, I want to be looking into the future about what the value of that house or investment property is going to do. Because I potentially have time on my side. I could choose to wait. I could choose to wait it out and then potentially profit off price declines that are going to occur in the future. Additionally, if I'm using leverage, and if I'm using heavy leverage, especially over 80, 85% loan amount and only 10 to 15% down, I then really care about future changes in the housing market. Because if values go down by, say, 15% and I have a highly levered loan, I'm in trouble. Because if I want to make a move at that point, if I want to sell my house, if I want to change my career, I want to go to some other city, all of a sudden I'm underwater, right? And that's not a situation anyone wants to be in. Now, I would give two caveats to the data I showed in this video. The first is that we are still in the early stages of seeing declines in new home sales. We're going to need to see a couple more months of declines, I think, to really say, hey, we're in another 07 type environment where the home sales are just going down and down and down. I do think that's going to happen, but we do need to see that data for a couple more months before we can really feel confident about it. That's why you guys need to be paying attention to this data set. I have a link in the description to the Census Bureau data release each month, so you yourself can check this data. Of course, I'm going to be coming out with it in future videos as well, but in case you want to check it yourself, there's a link in the description. The second thing we need to be mindful of is regional differences. Not all areas of America are acting the same right now in terms of their housing market. I've discussed in a previous video how inventory in markets like Austin and Boise and Salt Lake is increasing significantly over the last couple months. Those are the markets where we're seeing more new homes on the market, less sales than before. If we were to go to the Southeast, places like Florida and South Carolina, we're seeing still very low levels of inventory in the Southeast. The Southeast is kind of trailing the Southwest in terms of where it is on the housing market progression. So if you're in a place like Florida or South Carolina, I think you're going to watch this video and you're going to say you're crazy. What my response is, just wait. What's happening in places like Austin and Boise right now in terms of the inventory surge is going to be happening in the Southeast in the next couple months. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I try to bring you this data in real time, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button. If you already hit the like button, don't hit it again and undo your previous like, but hitting the like button helps me get more traction on YouTube and actually enables me to spend more time and make more of these videos. Additionally, only 15% of my viewers are subscribers, according to YouTube. I want to change that. I want more of you to subscribe. I'd love for you to become a subscriber of my channel. I put out about 3 of these data-driven videos per week. I do some more macro-level stuff, like in this video on the US as a whole, and then I do more micro-level market deep dives. Check out some of my recent ones in markets like New York and Tampa, Orlando. I love diving deep into certain real estate markets, and make sure to request in the comments a new market deep dive if I haven't covered your city yet. All right, guys, until next time, this is Nick from ReVenture Consulting signing off.